What happens when two powerhouse voices collide in the most uncomfortable TV moment of the year? What you're about to see is the exact second everything unraveled between Teddy Swims and Kelly Clarkson, leading to one of the most shocking walk-offs in daytime television. The lights were bright, the cameras rolling. Kelly Clarkson settled into her chair, flashing her trademark smile as she introduced her guest. Across from her, Teddy Swims shifted on the couch, his tattooed hands fidgeting with the mic clipped to his shirt. The audience buzzed, unaware they were seconds away from witnessing TV history. "So, Teddy," Kelly began warmly, "your rise to fame has been incredible. From posting covers in your bedroom to selling out arenas. It's like a fairy tale." Teddy's jaw tightened, his smile held but barely. "Fairy tale? I wouldn't call it that. It's been years of hard work, rejection, and people not believing in me." "Of course," Kelly nodded. "But that's what makes it inspiring. You went from an unknown to millions of views almost overnight. It must feel amazing to finally get the recognition you deserve." The word finally hung heavy in the air. Teddy's smile cracked. "I've been doing this for over a decade, Kelly. It wasn't overnight. And it was never about recognition. It was about staying true to my art, whether anyone noticed or not." Kelly let out a light laugh, forced this time. "Right, of course. But you have to admit social media really changed everything for you. Without TikTok and Instagram, would we even know who Teddy Swims is?" The question landed like a slap. Teddy straightened in his seat, the polished calm slipping. "Are you suggesting my success is just a product of algorithms?" Kelly backpedaled. No, not at all. I'm just saying social media gave you a platform the industry wouldn't have. Let's be honest. It's tough for artists who don't fit the typical mold." Teddy's eyes narrowed. "What mold exactly?" Kelly pressed on, oblivious to the tension rising. "You know, the tattooed, bearded, soulful guy look. Very trendy, very authentic, even if it feels carefully crafted." The audience fell silent. Even the cameramen froze. Carefully crafted. Teddy's voice dropped, quiet but sharp. "These tattoos aren't branding. This beard isn't marketing. This is me. Long before anyone cared about authenticity." Kelly glanced off stage. At her producers, her smile strained. "Of course, I didn't mean otherwise. What I meant is, how do you keep that authentic connection with fans while managing sudden fame?" "Sudden fame," Teddy repeated, shaking his head. "You talk like I just appeared out of nowhere with a guitar and a dream. Do you know how many empty bars I sang in? How many times I was told my voice was too soulful for country, too R&B for rock? I've been doing this for years, Kelly." Kelly tried to steer away. "Well, speaking of your voice, your new album, it sounds so polished compared to those early bedroom recordings. It must be nice working with a real team of professionals." That was the breaking point. Teddy's eyes flashed. The temperature in the studio seemed to drop. "A real team of professionals, as opposed to the so-called amateurs I worked with before." Kelly froze, realizing too late. "I just meant proper studios and experienced producers elevate the sound. There's nothing wrong with getting help to reach your full potential." "Help to reach my full potential?" Teddy's tone was ice. "Tell me, Kelly, when you won American Idol, did people say Simon Cowell and the producers helped you reach your potential? Or did they admit the talent was already there?" For the first time, Kelly faltered. "That's different. Idol was about finding talent. And what do you think I was doing in those bars, in those recordings? Playing hide and seek?" Teddy's voice rose, his frustration boiling over. I was showing my talent to anyone who would listen, long before any algorithm or professional team or fairy tale narrative you want to spin. The audience shifted uneasily. Kelly straightened in her chair, forcing calm back into her voice. Teddy, I think there might be a misunderstanding here. I have nothing but respect for your journey and your talent, Kelly said, her voice tight. Maybe we just got off on the wrong foot. But Teddy wasn't buying it. No, Kelly, we got off on exactly the foot you intended. You brought me here to box my story into some feel-good clip about social media success and studio polish, without actually understanding what that story is. The air in the studio grew heavy. Audience members shifted, whispering nervously. Camera operators froze, unsure whether to cut away or zoom in closer. For the first time, Kelly Clarkson looked rattled. I think what our audience would benefit from. Kelly tried again, her voice shaky. Is hearing about your creative process, how you choose which songs to record. My creative process? Teddy let out a laugh with no humor in it. My process is taking every rejection, every person who told me I didn't fit the mold, and turning that pain into music. My process is being real in a world that's constantly trying to sell you a version of real. Kelly's cheeks flushed red. Teddy, I understand you're passionate, but I think you're misinterpreting my questions. Am I? Teddy leaned forward, his eyes burning into hers. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you think my success is some mix of luck, algorithms, and producers saving me. Like someone who looks like me couldn't possibly have made it without the system bending in my favor. The silence was suffocating. Even the low hum of studio equipment felt louder. This wasn't an interview anymore. It was a standoff. Kelly's smile dropped. I think you're being unfair. I've interviewed hundreds of artists, and I've always been supportive of different paths to success. Supportive? Teddy's voice cracked like a whip. In the last 10 minutes, you've implied my success was accidental, my authenticity manufactured, my early work amateur, and my talent incomplete without professionals. If that's supportive, I'd hate to see hostile. The audience collectively held its breath. Some raised their phones, recording history. Producers frantically waved signals from behind the cameras, but Kelly and Teddy were locked in, neither willing to blink. Kelly's tone sharpened. I'm trying to have a real conversation about your career trajectory. If you're going to take every question as a personal attack, maybe you're not ready for this level of media attention. The words detonated in the room. Gasps rippled through the audience. Even the cameramen flinched. Not ready? Teddy repeated slowly, his voice dangerous. He rose from the couch, towering over the set. So let me get this straight. You think I'm not ready for media attention because I refuse to sit here and let you diminish everything I've fought for? Kelly's eyes flickered with regret, but she pressed on. Artists who want to succeed at this level need to handle tough questions and different perspectives without getting defensive. Tough questions? Teddy scoffed, pacing now. Asking me about my writing, my influences, that's tough. What you've done here is try to rewrite my story into something that fits your show's narrative. I'm trying to help viewers understand your journey. Kelly shot back, her voice rising. Sometimes that means asking questions you don't want to hear. Help viewers understand. Teddy laughed bitterly. Or help yourself understand how someone like me could succeed without going through the same machine that validated it. You! The accusation hit Kelly like a slap. Her face went from shock to anger to something that looked dangerously close to panic. That's completely out of line, Teddy. But Teddy was already pacing, his voice booming, his hands cutting, through the air. "Because from where I stand," Teddy said, his voice low and steady, "it seems like you can't wrap your head around the fact that there are artists who didn't need a television competition, who didn't need industry gatekeepers, who didn't need permission from people like you to make music that matters." Kelly's voice snapped back, louder now, matching his energy. "People like me? What is that supposed to mean?" "It means people who think success has to come in one package, through one system, signed off by the right institutions. It means people so invested in protecting their version of how the industry works, they can't see talent unless it fits. A mold they already approve of." The air was electric. Audience members shifted uncomfortably, some leaning in like spectators at a crash, others inching toward the exits. Even the house band sat at rigid attention, instruments untouched. Kelly's composure was cracking. "You know what, Teddy? I've been doing this show for years. I've made artists feel welcome. I've celebrated their success. I've given them a platform. If you can't appreciate that, maybe the problem isn't my questions." "Made artists feel welcome?" Teddy stopped pacing and faced her directly. "Kelly, this whole interview, you've tried to convince me, and everyone watching, that my success isn't real, that my authenticity is fake, that my talent only counts because professionals polished it. If that's your idea of welcome, I'd hate to see your idea of—" "Hostile!" Kelly shot to her feet, her voice sharp. "You're putting words in my mouth. I never said any of those things." "You didn't have to," Teddy fired back. Every question undermined something. Every comment carried the assumption that I'm less legitimate than the artists you're comfortable with. "That's paranoid and ridiculous," Kelly snapped, her voice echoing. "I ask all my guests about their journeys." "Do you?" Teddy's eyes blazed. "Do you ask Taylor Swift if she's just a product of algorithms? Do you ask John Legend if his early work was amateur before professionals touched it? Do you accuse mainstream artists of not being ready for media when they push back on your framing? Or is that treatment reserved for people who don't fit your mold?" Kelly faltered, her mouth opening and closing. "That's not a fair comparison." "Why not?" Teddy cut her off. "Because their path makes sense to you. Because they look like the version of success you're comfortable with. And I don't." Behind the cameras, producers waved their arms frantically. But in the studio, nothing mattered, except the escalating collision happening on stage. Kelly's voice shook with anger. "Now you're being unprofessional. This was supposed to be a celebration of your success, not an attack on me." "Unprofessional?" Teddy's voice dropped to a growl. "You've spent 20 minutes chipping away at my career, my authenticity, my worth, and you're lecturing me about professionalism?" "I've asked legitimate questions," Kelly insisted, though her voice betrayed her. "Legitimate questions?" Teddy shot back, his voice rising. "Like whether I'm just a social media gimmick, whether my music only matters with industry polish, whether I'm ready for this level of attention. That's not legitimacy, Kelly. That's disrespect." Kelly flushed deep red, searching desperately for support in the audience. But everywhere she looked, she found only averted eyes, or phones raised, recording. Even her own crew seemed to shrink back. "This is my show," Kelly said finally, her voice sharp with pride. "I've been nothing but supportive. And if you can't see that, maybe you should reconsider whether you even want to be here." The ultimatum dropped like a stone. Teddy stared at her, chest rising and falling. The studio was so silent the hum of the air vents seemed deafening. Finally, he spoke, eerily calm. "You know what, Kelly? Maybe I should." Kelly's eyes widened as she realized what he meant. "Teddy, don't be dramatic. We can work through this." "Work through what?" Teddy snapped, unclipping his mic with deliberate, measured movements. "Your need to shrink my story into something comfortable for you? Your refusal to respect what I've built? Please." Kelly's voice cracked now, slipping into desperation. "You're misunderstanding me. I brought you here because I believe in your talent." He paused, meeting her eyes with something between pity and contempt. "No. You brought me here because I'm trending, because booking me meant clicks and clips and buzz. Don't confuse that with believing in my talent. That's not true," Kelly whispered, but conviction had drained from her voice. "My story," Teddy continued, his voice cutting through the room, "is about the music that saved my life, the fans who believed before anyone else did, the years of struggle that shaped every lyric I write. You didn't ask me a single thing about that. You were too busy trying to diminish it." The audience was transfixed. Some phones stayed glued in the air. Others sat frozen in silence, watching daytime TV history implode. Kelly's face crumbled, her voice breaking. "I don't understand why you're being so hostile. I've always supported artists from all backgrounds." "Backgrounds?" Teddy repeated, his voice like a final verdict. He dropped the mic onto the couch, the sound reverberating through the studio. "Then maybe you should have supported mine." With that, he stood, turned, and strode off stage without a glance back. The audience gasped. Some clapped. Others just stared in stunned silence. Kelly remained standing at center stage, frozen, her hands trembling as the cameras kept rolling. Daytime television had just witnessed a walk-off no one would forget. Teddy's voice was sharp as a blade. "Kelly, you've made it crystal clear that you don't consider my background legitimate. Every question has been designed to explain away my success, rather than celebrate it." "I never said your background wasn't legitimate," Kelly shot back, but even she seemed to hear how thin it sounded. "You didn't have to say it." Teddy freed the mic from his shirt with a tug. "When you suggest that social media is the only reason people know who I am, you're saying my music isn't good enough to stand on its own. When you imply my early work only mattered once professionals touched it, you're saying I wasn't talented enough without help. When you question if I'm ready for media attention, you're saying I don't belong here at all." Kelly looked around desperately, but the production team seemed paralyzed. "Teddy, I think you're reading too much into casual interview questions." "Casual?" Teddy's laugh was bitter, disbelieving. "There was nothing casual about this. Every word was loaded. Every comment was designed to undermine. This wasn't an interview. It was an interrogation. The silence that followed was suffocating." Kelly's face flickered through emotions like a slot machine before she landed on her gamble. "You know what, Teddy? Maybe this reaction is exactly why some people in the industry have concerns about working with you. Maybe this attitude is why you had to build your career outside traditional channels." The words detonated in the studio. Audience members gasped. Even the camera operators flinched. Teddy froze, his face darkening with something colder than anger. "There it is," he said softly, his voice slicing through the air. "The real Kelly Clarkson. Not the supportive host, not the champion of artists. Just someone who thinks pushing back against her narrative means there's something wrong with me." Kelly's eyes widened. She knew she had gone too far. "Teddy, I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did." Teddy's certainty was absolute. You meant it exactly how it sounded. To you, my refusal to sit here and smile while you diminish me is proof that I'm the problem. Proof that the gatekeepers were right to overlook me. Proof that I don't fit. The studio was dead silent. Kelly shrank in her chair. The audience didn't dare move. Teddy lifted the mic, staring at it like it was poisoned. You know what's most insulting? I respected you. I thought you'd understand, because you came from a show where your talent was questioned too. But you're no different. You're just another industry insider who can't see past her own limited perspective. Teddy, please. Kelly's voice cracked. I made mistakes here. Let me make it right. Make it right? Teddy shook his head slowly. You can't unmake the last 30 minutes. You can't unsay the things you said. This interview showed me exactly who you are and exactly what you think of artists like me. He placed the microphone on the side table, careful, deliberate. I came here ready for a conversation. Instead, I got an ambush dressed up as support. You think my success is a fluke. You think my authenticity is just branding. And you wanted me to sit here and nod along. Kelly was openly pleading now. Please don't leave like this. I swear that's not what I think. Teddy looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried more sorrow than fury. Kelly, the tragedy isn't that you think these things about me. The tragedy is that you probably think them. About a lot of artists who don't fit your mold. How many sat in this chair and swallowed it just to play along? None, Kelly whispered desperately. This has never happened before. Maybe not, Teddy said, standing with finality. But maybe that's because they cared more about being polite than being honest. He turned to the audience, their phones raised, recording history. I'm sorry you all had to witness this, but sometimes standing up for yourself is more important than being polite. Kelly made one last attempt. Teddy, you're throwing away a huge opportunity. This show reaches millions. Teddy paused at the edge of the set, turning back one last time. I'd rather reach nobody than reach millions through someone who doesn't respect what I've built. My music speaks for itself. It doesn't need validation from anyone who can't hear its worth. And with that, he walked off stage. The cameras kept rolling. Kelly sat frozen, eyes glassy, as the audience hovered between applause, boos, and stunned silence. Producers scrambled, but there was no salvaging what had just unfolded. This wasn't just a walk-off. It was a rupture, a statement, a moment, destined to be replayed, dissected, and debated for years. And it all began with what was supposed to be a simple, supportive interview.